Hi, welcome to Walking Wilder. I'm Bart, and this is a collective intuitive reading, and we're gonna look at how to work on healing the mother wound. So, if that's a subject that resonates with you, this could be your reading. Uh, Welcome in. If you're new, welcome back if you've been here before. And yeah, uh, let's see what Spirit has to say. All right. The first thing that I want to look at is what part of your mother wound might need some looking into. And the first card that came is the card Your Presence is Requested, which makes me feel like there's a need for you to be present with yourself. Um, I'm seeing someone who is, you know, scattering around, being very busy, doing, all the things that we do in a normal life. And there's a sense of the need to become still with yourself in order to really feel what's going on um, with your energy and to just really kind of be present. And I know that can be difficult if you have a busy life, like most of us do, with family and work and all kinds of stuff. But, you know, this is calling for you to be in a good partnership with yourself, in the sense that you have to, well, you don't have to, you have free choice, but free will, but this sense of being a good partner for yourself. Some of you that has these mother wounds are very good at being caregivers, very good at taking care of other people, of taking other people's feelings and needs into consideration way before you attend to your own needs and your own, wants in this world. So this is calling for you to recognize that a part of being in balance is to be a good partner to yourself, to be your own best friend. And I know that's such a cliche, but often cliches are there for a reason. Um, there's some truth here to that. To hear with your heart, in the sense that you might have this voice in your head that's like very judgmental if you're not, attending to other people's needs. A lot of us has learned as children that it's important that we're always there for other people. We are constantly on. We're trying to figure out what's going on, around us, that type of thing. And this energy here is calling for you to really hear with your heart. What do you need? What is the truth of this? It's kind of like separate, being able to separate all the noise, all the background stuff that you were taught as a child, either, very specifically or just indirectly with other people's actions and the way that they, behaved, the way that they might have put themselves in victim roles, that kind of thing. So, there's this, there's, there's this need for really being gentle and kind to yourself. There's an energy here of, I don't know, of just, I'm speaking quite a bit slower than what I normally do as well. So it is telling me that there's this need for slowing down and for being gentle and paying attention to what comes up in you when I'm saying these things. How does this make you feel? Is there some sort of resistance in some of it? That type of thing. So um, let's see here. The next thing is, how can we work with this? So Spirit, help us out here. How can we work with healing these things in ourselves here? For most of you, this has to do with, basic things like taking time for yourself, like setting healthy boundaries, that type of thing. But I really get the caretaker role with this, that you are very deeply entrenched in this having to take care of other people. or at least feeling like you have to, like things are your responsibility, that in all reality probably is not your responsibility or shouldn't be in any way. There's an energy here of teamwork, but also this mischief thing. It's like, what is teamwork really? Is teamwork working together as, a group, a family group, a group of co-workers, a group of, are there healthy boundaries? Are there fair divisions of duties? Are there all these things? And this kind of gives me an energy here that, there's something to be learned in that arena, something about communication. And with this, I'm feeling that you might need to communicate more directly what your wants are, or what your needs are, really, not your wants, but your needs. What do you need in a particular situation? I'm kind of sensing this person who is very easy to say, okay, well, I'll do that, either because other people around you are not taking on the responsibility, or because it's just become a habit. It's like, well, I'll just do that. And sometimes because you think it's easier, sometimes just because you act without, really thinking, is this my responsibility or not? Um, so there's something there in that sense. What can we do to heal the mother wound spirit? This caretaker wound here. There's plenty of other, ankles on this, but right here, I'm feeling it's definitely to do with you being the caretaker. Some of you have had to be, to become adults at a very early age, in the sense that you might have to cater to your mother's needs, her, I don't know, way of looking at the world, or probably some sort of victim mentality. This has, left some of you feeling like you were just totally overwhelmed, not really knowing where to reach out, not really knowing how to get out of this, because first of all, you're just too young. You were never supposed to be the one that kind of had to, bear these things. Let's see here. Yeah, this is like the phoenix rising. It's like it's time for you to just, well, not just, but to really see other people's roles around you and reflect on, here with your heart, what is this actually doing to me? Am I feeling called to help, to constantly clean up other people's mess? And I don't mean, necessarily literal mess. I'm sorry. Um, but, just things that are happening. Am I feeling called to do this because I actually, feel that is my job? Or is this some pattern that I have that I just automatically kind of step into this? There's a need here also to remember that other people learn by doing. So often, you're overburdening yourself, but you might also, if this has to do with children, you might take some of their responsibilities away from them, where it would actually be good for them to have to deal with this. And I'm not saying, don't help your kids, but, the line between just doing things for them and kind of pointing them in the right direction. Can I know some more here, Spirit? What can we do to heal the mother wound here? There's an ancestral theme here, of course, looking back in generations, perhaps looking into your family history to see, okay, the things that I was taught by my mother, are they things she were taught, by hers? And how far does this go back? And you might not be able to, really know that, but you can energetically look into it and kind of see the wounding in your line is your uh, maternal line, and work with the energies there, kind of setting yourself free from this. There's this feeling of, just because this is how it's always, been passed down, that does not mean that it, will still be passed down that way. I can change things if I want to. This shifting into a sense of abundance, Um, Now this, with the forehead of the buffalo here, this very strong, like I'm just going to charge ahead. I kind of get this that some of you have just been going and going and going out in the world and been, I don't know, too forceful for your own good. That, um, how do I explain that? Um, Again, back to this being a good partner for yourself. You've been too harsh with yourself in the way that you have put responsibilities on yourself, in the way that you have um, um, in the way that you viewed yourself. Um, Again, the communication, not just with other people, but also with yourself. How am I viewing myself? How am I talking to myself? What boundaries am I putting up? Am I working together with others, or am I actually actively not, just because you haven't really seen it or you haven't really acknowledged it? Some of you are, again, taking on too much, thinking you might always have to be the one forging towards abundance here, that you're like the one that has to always walk ahead. But these are, buffaloes are herds, they live in herds. So it's okay to kind of take turns for someone to be the one that goes, that takes up the front spot, metaphorically, of course, here. Um, yeah. So what's the challenge of healing this mother wound spirit? Ten of Cups. Yeah, for some of you, this is how you're kind of like your idea of what, for instance, a happy family life should look like, or life in general should look like, what Ten of Cups should look like, very much comes from this story of your lineage. And it might be that, well, you have to work really, really hard. You have to, some of you might come from families where there's very strong values of some sort that are not really resonating with you on a deep level, but it's like, this is what I was taught, that I was supposed to think about this. Or it's like there's something about the way you view what the Ten of Cups, which of course is emotional abundance and happiness, and the whole the whole image there of happy life. There's something here about the way that you view that might not be truly authentic to who you are, but be more a reflection of your lineage here. And not that there's anything wrong with, the way that, families see things and stuff, but if it's not really resonating with you on a deep level, and you will know if that's true, then it's time to look at, why am I living my life based on how the people who came before me are living, if it doesn't feel true to my heart, if I don't feel like this is my story. Of course it is, in a sense, your story, because that's the DNA that brought you into this world, but that doesn't mean that the whole story has to be continued. You're still entitled to decide, parts of this story does not resonate with who I am, so I'm going to do this in a different way, and be okay with that. Some of you might have to communicate that to your parents or your mother or mother figures, or people who represent these patterns in your life, that this is just not, this doesn't resonate with me. And that can be like a tough thing to do if you're really used to just kind of going along with whatever's going on. And I'm not saying you all are doormats or anything like that, but it's like we get so entrenched in these habits that we don't question them. And then all of a sudden it's like we wake up and we realize, wait, this isn't my story. It doesn't feel true to who I am. How can we work with this spirit? Seven of Wands. So there's a theme here about setting boundaries, kind of standing your ground in things, and that can feel like extremely overwhelming if you always had a hard time, setting boundaries. But it's important here that you work on learning how to do that, because otherwise it's kind of like you're just going to, and I'm kind of seeing someone, kind of like this desert car here, it's like more and more of you are going to disappear below the sand here if you don't start really holding on to who you are. Your present is requested here in your life with your values, your hopes, your dreams, your wishes for how you want to live. So it's like it's time that you stop, living on other people's living on, from other people's perspective. So there's definitely a need for working with setting better boundaries. Something about these mother wounds that the viewer can see differently. Spirit, that was a lot. Can we have a little less? And as always, if this reading resonates with you, please go ahead and click subscribe, give it a thumbs up, maybe write me a comment. That would be wonderful. Helps the channel grow, helps more people see the messages, and that's really what it's all about. Queen of Swords here. This is you standing very strongly in your own independent way of viewing the world, your life, your wishes, she's like, well, this is my truth. This is how I'm going to do it. You don't have to agree, but please, be respectful of it. She may not even say please. She just might be like, well, that's my boundary, so if and that, depending on how it resonates with some of you. But, this is definitely the energy of, I see this for what it is, and I see that there's a need for me to be present with what I'm wanting for my life, to be a good partner for myself, to hear with my heart my own truth, other people's truth, but first and foremost, to learn to set boundaries so that I can act out of love and kindness for myself and the people around me. That, setting boundaries doesn't mean that you're not being loving towards people around you. They may initially, think that what is this and why this change and, all of this. But in the end, you become more authentic, and that is going to change the dynamics with other people as well. How would healing this wound and setting better boundaries help you with other relationships in your life? Temperance at the bottom here, which of course is about healing, being patient, balance, but definitely also being more authentic, this spiritual connection. Who am I on a deep level? How do I create balance in my life? How do I show up authentically as the person that I am? This is walking away, from these old patterns, being able to actually decide to walk away from things that are not good for you, even though it looks like a little bit like a rocky road. This bridge is not exactly looking like the strongest building things, but this is finding the courage to walk away from situations, in the sense that you're sitting, well, in some situation you might actually say, I'm leaving this. This is not, I don't need this job if I'm not being, I'm going to go find another job if I'm being mistreated here or not valued, not appreciated, not all of that. You might end some relationships because you're like, well, this is just not, serving my highest good. This is not the way I want to live. I'm not being respected. I'm not being, all of these things. So it's like, well, this would definitely, learning to set better boundaries will mean that you're leaving things behind. It can also just be the pattern of, over giving, in the sense that you're letting people make decisions for you, or other people's choices are affecting your way of living too much. Three of Cups here, more balance, more cooperation with people who are actually, good for you. this is also choosing to be in relationships that are more balanced, where there's an equal give and take, where you don't have to carry the whole burden of everything, but where, we kind of help each other. We are giving, we're taking, we're working together. It's actual teamwork, and not someone constantly having to fill other people's cups. Can I know more about this, Spirit? Oops. Four of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups here. Excuse me. Yeah, there's some. Oh, I'm sorry. There's something about your stability here, about building something from scratch. I hear making a new kind of platform for yourself to be more in balance, to create relationships. I'm seeing these four corners as new connections in your life that are more in line with who you are. And it doesn't mean that you are necessarily leaving everything behind, but it's just kind of, sometimes creating a new relationship is also kind of redoing current relationships, because you start setting different boundaries and you start saying, hey, this just isn't working for me. We need to find another way where there's more balance, where there's more, give and take. And this is just not working for me in the way that it is right now. That is you being very truthful, very honest about who you are, setting some boundaries, and seeing how the connections are changing. And yeah, some people are not going to like it, and some people are going to be like, oh yeah, okay, I see the fairness in that. What do you suggest? You might be surprised, some of you, how much people are actually going to be willing to change once you start setting better boundaries. Here's the Knight of Cups. To me, this is like you saying to yourself, okay, I have to treat myself better. It's also you giving offers to other people of redoing connections in a way that are more loving, more kind, more authentic with who you are. Now, some people are not gonna, necessarily see that. If it's old family patterns that's been going on for generations, it's gonna take some time, to change this. See how she's kind of looking with one eye over on you over here, and it's like, well, I kind of hear what you're saying, but we've been doing this way for so long, that kind of energy. But this is also you being very connected, you being very clear about who you are, how you want your life to be, what your boundaries are. And it's kind of like the more clear you are, the more it's going to ripple out to, connections in your life. Sometimes it's on an energetic level where people are kind of sensing something has shifted here. Of course, communication is important, but sometimes you can change connections just by slowly starting to set boundaries where you wouldn't have set a boundary before, starting to say no where you just automatically have said yes before, and watch people kind of recognize that something has changed in the energy in this connection. All right, Spirit, can we get some advice? Oh. Can we get some advice here? The Fool at the bottom here, which is a new beginning, new way of seeing things. Here's the Ten of Swords with, is ending of things. In this case, it seems to me that it's ending of ways that you are thinking about things. It's your pattern, your mental patterns, your, all the destructive, that sounds like you're a hot mess. But, these old ways of looking at yourself, of just accepting things for what they are. It's like that is over. Here is justice, which to me is like the karma card here. There's an ending of karmic cycles here, of ancestral patterns that's been going on for a long time. And it's like you're waking up. It's like you're, coming out of this being stuck and being like, all right, it's time for this to end because I have different plans for my life. I have things I'm being called to do in ways that I'm being called to do it that may not align with how things have been, but that's all right. It's not like, um, it's not like you um, like you have to be stuck. So there's there's this sense of, actually, there's a sense of this is ending whether you really are aware of it or not. It's like the wheel has already started turning. I don't have the Wheel of Fortune here, but that's we have the Fool card. Um, that's the feeling I get with it. Like this is a process that has already started, that has already begun, and there's really no going back from the Ten of Swords. You're not going to regress back into this, because this is, a new way of being in the world for you. Here's the Seven of Pentacles. This is new opportunities, new ways of being, flows of things into your world. And see how, this is kind of like a sticky, sticky cactus thing here. So it may not be, there might be some resistance to this, and there might be a learning curve where things are still going to sometimes, go a little forth, a little back. It's like there's a resistance to this. But that doesn't mean that it can't develop into this beautiful flower here. It doesn't mean that there's not growth potential. It just means that this is not the easiest thing to dig yourself out from. But it's nevertheless, it's necessary. It's time with the Justice card. It's time to start a new way of being in the world. Not just for you, but for your lineage. There's something to be said for that too. Three of Pentacles here. Building something new with other people in a new way of doing things. So, yeah. Can I have one of these, Spirit? That's the last message. I hope this makes sense to you guys. And again, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you feel called to do so. Whoop. Yeah, resilience here at the bottom. And see, here's the desert again, So this is kind of, this is you coming back from, but emerging from these old patterns that has been in your family lineage for probably a long time. And again, some of you would benefit from looking back to that. And it doesn't have to be, a big ancestral thing, but you can do it energetically, kind of sitting with, okay, so how far back in my family do these patterns run? How, what's the feeling of it? What am I carrying here? So that you can build, a better future for yourself, a happier foundation, something that's more in alignment with who you are and how you want to live life based on this inner wisdom that you find here. So there's like, this development of looking at what I come from, who I am, what I would like to create, and then build from that, being authentic, setting boundaries in kind and loving ways, but also firm ways. Be who you came here to be. That is your birthright. Nobody should in any way, shape, or form say otherwise. That doesn't mean they won't, but this is where you take your Queen of Swords energy and kind of go like, well, it's my life, and this is the way that I want to live it. And start being your own best friend. That's what I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, and big love.